Why was she staring at the man who was about to kill her, and choosing not to pull the trigger? Through the thermal optics of her XM2010, Chief Warrant Officer Elena Vance could see everything. The heat signature, the chest rig, the crosshairs settled perfectly over his heart. One squeeze, one breath, one decision that would change everything. But her finger, it just hovered there, frozen, not from fear, from something far more complicated. "Take the shot, Bravo 2, the voice crackled through the earpiece. "Lieutenant Commander Graves, call sign Widowmaker." His tone was flat, professional, the kind of voice that had ordered 1,000 kills and never lost sleep over one. Elena's heart was beating at 45 beats per minute. She had trained it to slow like that, to become stone, to become ice. The thermal blanket wrapped around her body masked her heat signature, turning her into just another rock on this god-forsaken ridgeline in the Hindu Kush. But inside she was screaming. "Affirmative, long gun. She's tracking us, boss, I can feel it." That voice belonged to someone she might have known, maybe shared a meal with, maybe laughed with in some dusty forward operating base a lifetime ago. And now he was hunting her. Now he was the predator and she was the prey. "If I shoot, I prove I'm the traitor they think I am." The thought cut through her like the wind, sharp, cold, brutal. "If I don't, I die. Put her down." The muzzle flash bloomed in her optic like a deadly flower. She didn't think. She rolled. Not away from the bullet, but into the exposed rock face, accepting the shredding pain of jagged shale over the lethal round that shattered stone where her head had been a microsecond before. Blood trickled into her eye. Hot, wet, real. "Missed target is moving, pursuing." Elena scrambled into the darkness, her rifle slung across her back, her lungs burning in the thin mountain air. 11,000 feet. The kind of altitude that turned your blood to sludge and your thoughts to static. But she kept moving, because stopping meant dying, and dying meant they'd won. They'd killed her twice, once with a lie, and now with bullets. But there was something they didn't know, something she hadn't told anyone, not yet. 48 hours earlier, she had been just another soldier doing her job, watching, waiting, reporting. The ridge in the Hindu Kush was her office, and the cold was her companion. 14 hours without moving, without eating, without feeling anything except the weight of duty pressing down on her shoulders like the 11,000 feet of thin air. Through the loophole Mark V spotting scope, the world was washed in monochromatic grain. She wasn't looking for a person. She was looking for disruptions, patterns that didn't belong, ghosts moving through the valley floor 3 kilometers away. Her mission was simple: reconnaissance and surveillance on a suspected Taliban logistics route. Low risk, high boredom, the kind of assignment that made you question whether the war was still happening or if everyone had just forgotten to tell you it was over. But the silence in her earpiece felt wrong. "Operations, this is Wraith 1-1. Comms check, over." Static. Not the empty hiss of an open channel, but something else, something deliberate, the rhythmic pulsing of a jammed frequency, or a cut one. Elena shifted her weight imperceptibly, checking the PRC-117F radio tucked into the small of her back. Battery green, encryption key valid, signal strong. "Why aren't you answering?" Her spotter, Sergeant Miller, had been dead for 3 days. A lucky mortar strike on their previous position, or so the report said. She was alone up here now. The solitude usually sharpened her focus, made her senses keener, but today it felt like a shroud. Then the radio crackled. It wasn't the Tactical Operations Center. It wasn't her command. It was a bleed-over frequency. A signal so powerful it overrode her encryption and punched through the static like a fist through glass. "Confirm asset is in position. Over." The voice was American, clean, Virginia accent, the kind of voice that belonged in a briefing room, not on a combat frequency. "Asset is stationary. Grid 44 Sierra Kilo. She's waiting for extraction that isn't coming." Elena's blood turned to ice. She. Copy, the Virginia voice replied. Sanitize the site. Black Ledger cannot be compromised. The narrative is set. Vance has turned. She killed her spotter. She's selling intel to the sector. Elena stopped breathing. Her hand froze halfway to the volume knob. Black Ledger. The intel she had uploaded 2 days ago. Images of heroin bricks packed into crates marked with U.S. diplomatic seals. Shipping manifests, flight logs, bank accounts. She thought she was sending it to the Inspector General, a whistleblower report, the right thing to do. She had sent it to the architect of the lie. Who is the cleaning crew? The field voice asked. SD-6 Echo Platoon. They think she's a traitor who murdered a brother. They aren't coming to arrest her. Confirm, Roe is free fire, kill on sight. Make it look like she fought back. The transmission cut. The white noise rushed back in, louder than before, filling her skull like water filling a drowning man's lungs. Elena stared at the gray rock inches from her nose. The betrayal wasn't a sharp knife. It was a bludgeon. They weren't just killing her. They were erasing her. Years of service, the sacrifices, the silence, all twisted into a lie to cover a drug ring running through American supply lines. And they were sending SEAL Team 6, the best, her peers, men she had probably shared a mess shawl with, men who believed they were hunting a traitor. She checked her watch, Zulu time 300. If Echo Platoon was the cleaning crew, they would insert by rotary wing to offset the altitude. Fast, loud, violent. Thoop, thoop, thoop. The sound was faint, carried on the wind, but unmistakable. Rotors, multiple birds, maybe 10 minutes out. Elena looked at her XM2010. 5 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. She had 2 fragmentation grenades, a sidearm, and a knife. Against a platoon of Tier 1 operators with night vision, thermal drones, and air support. She could stay, try to explain, I'm innocent. They would put 2 rounds in her chest before she finished the word. They had their orders, kill on sight. She could fight. She had the high ground. She could probably take 3, maybe 4 of them with her before they dropped a JDAM on her head and turned this ridgeline into a crater. Elena grabbed the memory card from her encrypted drive, the proof of Black Ledger. She shoved it into a waterproof pouch inside her vest. Then she dismantled the heavy radio, smashing the internals with the butt of her pistol. She wouldn't leave them anything to track, anything to use. She slung the rifle across her back. The weight was familiar, comforting. She didn't look back at the valley she had watched for days. She looked up, toward the jagged peaks of the death zone, where the air was too thin for helos to hover, where men didn't go unless they wanted to die. You want a traitor, she whispered into the howling wind. I'll show you a ghost. Elena Vance began to climb. The interior of the MH-60M Blackhawk was a vibrating cage of red light and noise. Lieutenant Commander James Widowmaker Graves sat near the door gunner, his boots resting on the edge of the cabin floor. Below him, the jagged teeth of the Hindu Kush rushed by in a blur of gray and black, illuminated only by faint starlight amplified through his GPNVG-18 panoramic night vision goggles. 2 minutes, the crew chief shouted over the intercom, holding up 2 fingers. Graves tapped his headset, signaling his team. Echo Platoon, 12 men. Tier 1 operators who moved like water and hit like a tsunami. They were the hammer, and tonight the nail was one of their own. Target package, Chief Warrant Officer 3 Elena Vance. Call sign Wraith, sniper, confirmed traitor. The briefing at Bagram had been short and brutal. The CIA station chief, a man named Miller, had played the audio. Vance bargaining with a Taliban commander, offering American troop movements in exchange for safe passage and cash. Miller claimed she had put a bullet in her spotter's head when he tried to stop her. Graves adjusted the grip on his suppressed HK-416. He despised traitors, but something about the briefing stuck in his craw. Miller was too eager, too sweaty, And Vance, her service record was impeccable. Silver Star, 2 Purple Hearts. You don't just wake up one day and decide to sell out your country. Unless you break. 1 minute, wheels down in 30. Graves pushed the doubt down. His job wasn't to ask why. It was to ensure the safety of the sector. If Vance was compromised, she was a lethal threat to every coalition soldier in the valley. The Blackhawk flared hard, the nose pitching up as the pilot bled speed. The rotor wash kicked up a blinding storm of snow and shale. The wheels barely kissed the uneven ground. Go, go, go. The seals poured out of the bird like smoke, fanning into a tactical formation. The helo lifted off immediately, banking hard to the south to avoid being a target. And just like that, they were alone. 12 men, 1 mountain, 1 ghost. Graves scanned the ridgeline through his night vision. Green and grainy, nothing moved. Bravo 2, you got thermal. Affirmative, boss, scanning Sector 4 now. The team moved in silence, their boots crunching softly on the frozen shale. Every man knew his role. Every man trusted the next. This was what they had trained for, what they lived for. But something felt wrong. Graves couldn't place it. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was the altitude messing with his head. Or maybe it was the fact that they were hunting a woman who had once been on their side. Boss, I got something. Ridgeline Sector 4, standard ghillie suit, U.S. issue. Graves moved to Bravo 2's position, dropping to one knee. Through the thermal optic he could see it. A faint heat signature. Humanoid. Stationary. Is she armed? Affirmative, long gun. She's tracking us, boss, I can feel it. Graves felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. If Vance was tracking them, she had already chosen her first target, probably him. He was the team leader. Take him out and the rest would scatter. Do not engage unless you have positive ID, Graves said into the comms. PD is mandatory. Copy, Widowmaker. Target is stationary. Graves stared at the heat signature through his optic. He thought about the briefing, the audio, the allegations. Then he thought about the silver star on Vance's record. You don't earn that by being a coward or a traitor. Widowmaker, she's moving. The heat signature shifted, rolling into the rocks. Take the shot, Bravo 2, put her down. The suppressed crack of the rifle echoed across the ridge. A puff of rock dust bloomed where the target had been. Miss, target is moving, pursuing. Graves felt his stomach drop. If she was running, she knew they were here, and if she knew they were here, she had a plan. All elements weapons free, find her now. What he didn't know was that the hunt had just begun. And Alina Vance had no intention of being the prey. How do you survive when the men hunting you are the best in the world? Alina's lungs burned. The thin air at 11,000 feet turned every breath into a battle, every step into a negotiation with gravity. Blood trickled from the gash on her forehead where the shale had torn her skin open. She could feel it freezing on her cheek. Behind her she could hear them, boots on rock, low voices on encrypted radios, the soft click of weapons being readied. They were close, too close. She dropped into a shallow ravine, pressing her body against the frozen earth. Her rifle was still slung across her back. She hadn't fired it. Not yet. Because the moment she did, they would know exactly where she was, and 12 SEALs would collapse on her position like a vice. Thermal's got nothing, boss, she's masked. Alina had wrapped herself in the thermal blanket again, breaking her heat signature into irregular patches that looked like rocks. It wouldn't fool them for long, but it might buy her a few minutes. A few minutes to think. A few minutes to survive. She closed her eyes, forcing her heart rate down. 45 beats per minute. 38, 32. The cold helped. The cold made everything slower, even fear. What are you going to do, Alina? You can't run forever. You can't hide forever. She opened her eyes. No, but I can make them listen. She pulled the encrypted memory card from her vest. Black ledger, the The proof, the names, the manifests, the truth, if she could just get it to someone who mattered, someone outside Miller's reach. But who? The JAG office at Bagram, they were probably compromised too. The chain of command. Miller had already poisoned it. She was a traitor in their eyes, a murderer. No one would believe her without proof. And even with proof, Miller had resources, connections, the kind of power that made evidence disappear. Unless... She looked up at the ridge above her. The SEALs were spreading out, forming a perimeter, hunting her methodically, professionally. They weren't angry. They weren't reckless. They were just doing their job. What if I make them see the truth? It was insane, suicidal, but it was the only play she had left. Alina reached into her pack and pulled out a small handheld GPS unit. She powered it on, letting the screen glow softly in the darkness. Then she keyed in a set of coordinates. A location 2 clicks north. A high point with line of sight to the valley below. She set the GPS on the ground, tucked under a rock where it wouldn't be immediately visible, but would still transmit its signal. Bait. Then she began to move, not down the mountain, not away from the SEALs, but parallel to them, circling around their perimeter like a wolf testing a flock. Boss, I got a signal, GPS transponder 2 clicks north. Graves's voice came through the comms, sharp and focused. Is it hers? Affirmative, U.S. military issue, could be a trap. Could be, Graves agreed. Or she's running scared and getting sloppy. Bravo team, move to intercept. Alpha team, hold position and maintain overwatch. Alina watched through her scope as 6 of the SEALs peeled off, moving toward the GPS signal. That left 6 behind, still too many, but it was a start. She waited until they were 100 meters away. Then she moved again, slipping through the rocks like smoke. Her body was exhausted. Her hands were numb, but her mind was sharp, focused. Because this wasn't about survival anymore. This was about the truth. And she would make them see it, even if it killed her. She climbed higher, toward a narrow choke point in the rocks, a place where the mountain forced you into a single file, a place where numbers didn't matter as much as positioning, a place where one sniper could hold off an army. If she was lucky, if she was good enough, if she didn't hesitate. Alina settled into position, her rifle resting on a flat rock. Through the scope, she could see the SEALs moving below her. Shadows against shadows, professionals doing their job. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Not yet. She reached into her vest and pulled out a small emergency flare, the kind used for signaling rescue birds. She activated it and tossed it down the slope, where it tumbled and bounced, casting wild red light across the rocks. Contact flare Sector 3. The SEALs reacted instantly, weapons up, moving toward the light. And in that moment of distraction, Alina keyed her radio, not the encrypted tactical frequency, the emergency band, the one every coalition soldier monitored. Echo Platoon, this is Wraith 1-1. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. You are being used. Black Ledger is a lie. Miller is the traitor. I have proof. I have the manifests. The proof is on this freak. The transmission cut off as a bullet snapped past her head, so close she felt the pressure wave. They had found her. Target acquired, Sector 3 high ground. Alina rolled away from her position as the rocks exploded around her. She didn't return fire. Not yet. Because the moment she did, they would know she was willing to kill them. And she wasn't. Not unless she had no other choice. She ran, scrambling over the rocks, her rifle banging against her back. Behind her, she could hear them closing in, faster now, angrier. But also confused. Boss, did you hear that transmission? Affirmative, disregard, it's a diversion. But what if? She killed her spotter, Bravo 4, she's a traitor, stay focused. Alina's chest tightened. They didn't believe her. Why would they? Miller had crafted the perfect lie, and she was just a voice on a radio, a ghost with no face. She needed to give them a reason to doubt. She needed to give them proof. And she had one card left to play. One truth that Miller couldn't erase. Her spotter, Sergeant Miller. He wasn't killed by a mortar strike. And she could prove it. What happens when the men trying to kill you start to doubt? Graves crouched behind a boulder, his rifle trained on the ridgeline where Vance had disappeared. His team was spread out in a tactical formation, covering every angle, every approach. They had her boxed in, trapped. It was only a matter of time. But her words kept echoing in his head. Black Ledger is a lie. Miller is the traitor. I have proof. He keyed his comms. Bravo 2, what's your status on that GPS signal? Reach the coordinates, boss. It's just the unit. No Vance. It was a decoy. Graves cursed under his breath. She was playing them, using their own tactics against them. That took skill, and it took nerve. Or desperation. Alpha Team, tighten the perimeter. She can't have gone far. But even as he gave the order, doubt gnawed at him. The briefing at Bagram had been clean, too clean. Miller had all the answers, all the evidence, all the confidence. And in Graves's experience, people who were that sure of themselves were either telling the truth or lying through their teeth. Boss, I got something. Graves moved to Bravo 5's position. The SEAL was kneeling next to a small outcropping of rocks, his gloved hand holding something. A piece of fabric. It's from a U.S. Army uniform, Bravo 5 said. Fresh blood on it, and there's something else. He pointed to the rock. Scratched into the stone with a knife were 3 words. Check the body. Graves felt a chill run down his spine. What body? Bravo 5 asked. Her spotter, Graves said quietly. Sergeant Miller, the one she supposedly killed. Miller said it was a mortar strike, closed casket. Graves stared at the words on the rock. Why would she carve that? Why would she risk her position to leave a message that could be verified? Unless it was true. Unless Miller lied. Boss, we got movement. 200 meters east, she's running. Graves made a decision. Bravo 3, Bravo 4, break off. Head back to the LZ. Contact TOC. I want the autopsy report on Sergeant Miller. I want it now. Boss, we're in the middle of. Do it. The 2 SEALs hesitated, then moved off toward the extraction point. The rest of the team continued the hunt, but Graves could feel the shift. The doubt spreading like a crack in ice. Alina was running, but she wasn't running blind. She was leading them somewhere, somewhere deliberate. And Graves had a sinking feeling he knew where. The wreckage of the mortar strike was still there, 3 days old, a shallow crater in the mountainside where Sergeant Miller had died, or where he was supposed to have died. Alina reached the site first, collapsing against a rock, her chest heaving. She could hear the SEALs behind her, maybe 50 meters back. She didn't have much time. She crawled to the edge of the crater and started digging. The frozen earth resisted, but she clawed at it with her gloved hands, her knife, anything she could use. Blood from her torn fingernails stained the dirt. Come on, come on. Her hand hit something solid. Fabric. She dug faster, pulling the frozen dirt away until she could see it. A body, still in uniform, still wearing dog tags. Sergeant Miller. But there was no shrapnel damage, no blast wounds, just a single bullet hole right through the back of the skull. Execution style. Don't move. Alina froze. She turned slowly, her hands raised. 6 SEALs had her surrounded, their rifles trained on her center mass. Lieutenant Commander Graves stood at the front, his face unreadable behind his night vision goggles. Get your hands behind your head, now. Alina didn't move. Instead, she pointed at the body. Look at him, she said, her voice hoarse. Look at the wound. That's not a mortar strike. That's murder. Shut up and get on the ground. I didn't kill him, Alina shouted. Miller did, Station Chief Miller. He's running drugs through U.S. supply lines. I found the evidence and he killed my spotter to cover it up. He set me up to take the fall. Lies, one of the SEALs hissed. Then check the body, Alina's voice cracked. Check the ballistics, check the angle, I'm a sniper. If I wanted to kill him, I would have done it from 1,000 meters out, not point blank. This was an execution. Graves stared at her, then at the body. Bravo 5 checked the wound. The SEAL moved forward cautiously, kneeling next to the corpse. He examined the bullet hole, then looked up at Graves. 9mm, contact shot, powder burns on the skull. Graves's jaw tightened. Boss, TOC just transmitted. They pulled the autopsy report. Cause of death was listed as fragmentation wounds from mortar strike. But this is a gunshot, Bravo 5 said. Silence. Alina watched as the realization spread across their faces. Doubt becoming certainty, certainty becoming rage. Where's the proof? Graves demanded. You said you had proof of Black Ledger. Alina reached slowly into her vest, pulling out the encrypted memory card. She held it up. Everything's on here. Flight logs, bank accounts, photos of the drugs, Miller's signature on the manifests. I uploaded it to the IG, but Miller intercepted it. He's been running this operation for months, maybe longer. Graves stepped forward. He took the card, staring at it like it was a live grenade. If you're lying. I'm not, Alina said. And you know it, because if I was guilty, I would have run. I would have killed you when I had the shot. But I didn't, because you're not my enemy. Miller is. Graves looked at his team, then back at Alina. Lower your weapons. The SEALs hesitated. Lower them. They obeyed. Alina's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, her entire body shaking, not from cold, from relief. Graves crouched down in front of her. You just saved your life, Wraith, but this isn't over. If what you're saying is true, Miller's going to come for you the moment we land. I know, Alina whispered. Then we better make sure he doesn't get the chance. Graves stood up, keying his comms. All elements fall back to LZ. We're extracting the package, alive. He extended his hand to Alina. She stared at it for a long moment, then she took it. And for the first time in 48 hours, she allowed herself to hope. Can you prove your innocence when the people who framed you control the narrative? The rotors of the MH-47 Chinook thundered overhead as it descended toward the makeshift landing zone. The SEALs had formed a defensive perimeter around Alina, treating her not as a prisoner anymore, but as a protected asset. The shift was subtle, but it was there. In the way they positioned themselves, in the way they scanned the ridgelines. She wasn't the enemy. She was one of them. Graves stood next to her, the encrypted memory card secured in his chest pouch. He hadn't said much since they'd left the crater, just the occasional status update on the comms, but Alina could see the gears turning in his head. He was a tactician, and right now he was planning a different kind of assault. When we land at Bagram, Miller's going to be waiting, Graves said, his voice cutting through the rotor wash. I know. He's CIA. He'll have authority. He'll have lawyers. He'll try to take you into custody before we can get the evidence to anyone who matters. Alina looked at him. So what do we do? Graves's expression was hard. We don't let him. The Chinook touched down and the ramp lowered. But before they could move, Graves's radio crackled. Echo Platoon, this is TOC. Station Chief Miller is requesting immediate transfer of detainee upon arrival. Acknowledge. Graves didn't respond. He looked at Alina. Do you trust me? It was a strange question. This man had been hunting her an hour ago. His team had been ordered to kill her. But now, standing in the freezing wind with the weight of the truth between them, Alina realized something. She did trust him. Yes. Then stay close and let me do the talking. The flight back to Bagram was tense. Alina sat on the bench seat, her wrists zip-tied in front of her, not because Graves didn't believe her but because protocol demanded it. The other SEALs were quiet, their faces grim. They had just found out their mission was based on a lie, that they had been used as instruments of murder. That didn't sit well with men who had sworn an oath. Bravo 5 sat across from her. He was young, maybe 25. He'd been the one to check Sergeant Miller's body. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Alina looked up. "For what?" "For believing it, for hunting you." She shook her head. "You were following orders, that's what we do." "Orders based on lies." "That's not on you," Alina said. "That's on the man who gave them." The SEAL nodded, but she could see the anger in his eyes, the betrayal, and she understood it because she felt it too. When the Chinook touched down at Bagram, the ramp lowered to reveal a convoy of black SUVs waiting on the flight line. And standing in front of them, flanked by 4 contractors in tactical gear, was Station Chief Miller. He looked calm, composed, like a man who still believed he was in control. Graves stepped off the ramp first, his rifle slung across his chest. Alina followed, flanked by 2 SEALs. Her wrists were still bound, but her head was high. Miller smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Good work, Commander," he said smoothly. "We'll take the detainee from here. My team has a secure facility prepared for debriefing." 2 of the contractors stepped forward, reaching for Alina. Alina didn't flinch. She looked at Graves. Graves didn't move his hand to his weapon. He simply took a step sideways, placing his armored bulk directly between Alina and the CIA agents. "Negative," Graves said. Miller's smile faltered. "Excuse me." "That is a high-value asset accused of treason," Miller said, his voice tight. "She falls under agency jurisdiction pursuant to Operation Black Ledger protocols." "Operation Black Ledger is compromised," Graves said, his voice loud enough for everyone on the flight line to hear. "And Chief Warrant Officer Vance is not a detainee. She is a material witness in a federal investigation." "Investigation into what?" Miller scoffed, stepping closer. "Her own incompetence." Graves reached into his admin pouch. He pulled out the plastic-bagged hard drive and the encrypted Motorola radio he had taken from the dead mercenary. "Investigation into the trafficking of narcotics using U.S. military logistics," Graves said, "and the attempted murder of a SEAL platoon to cover it up." Miller's face went rigid. "You're tired, Commander. You're speaking out of turn. Hand over the prisoner and the intel, or I will have you court-martialed for insubordination before the sun comes up." "I don't think so." A new voice cut in. A colonel stepped out of the shadows near an MP Humvee. It was the JAG commander, flanked by 2 Criminal Investigation Division agents. Graves nodded. "Colonel, I am formally surrendering evidence of a felony committed by civilian personnel attached to this command. I am establishing chain of custody. Right now." Graves walked past Miller, ignoring the contractors who tensed as if to stop him. He handed the bag to the CID agent. "This drive contains the manifests," Graves stated clearly. "This radio connects Station Chief Miller to the hostile force that engaged my team 3 hours ago. We have voice confirmation recorded on our internal comms." Miller looked at the CID agents, then at the circle of SEALs who had formed a silent, menacing wall around Alina and Graves. He realized the math had changed. He wasn't in a dark room anymore. He was on a flight line, under cameras, surrounded by witnesses. "This is a mistake," Miller hissed, straightening his jacket. "You have no idea the damage you're doing to national security." "Get him out of my sight," the JAG colonel ordered. As the MPs moved in to escort a furious Miller away, the tension on the tarmac finally broke. Alina's legs nearly buckled. Graves turned back to her, cutting the zip ties with his knife. "It's over," he said. "Is it?" Alina asked. watching the black SUVs drive away. He's CIA Graves. He'll be back in Langley pushing papers in a month. Maybe, Graves admitted, but he won't be hunting you, and he won't be running dope out of my sector. Alina looked down at her freed wrists. The skin was raw, bleeding. But she was alive. And for now, that was enough. When does vindication feel hollow? 48 hours later, the interrogation room was sterile. White walls, metal table, the smell of lemon cleaner and stale coffee. Alina sat in a clean uniform, her face stitched up, her body still aching from the mountains. The door opened. It wasn't an interrogator. It was Graves. He was wearing his dress khakis, looking uncomfortable in the formal uniform. "You're cleared," he said, tossing a packet of papers on the table. Full exoneration. The drive had everything: names, bank accounts, flight logs, Miller's being flown to Leavenworth pending trial. Alina picked up the papers, and the inquiry into my spotter's death. "Ruled as hostile action by proxy," Graves said. "Miller ordered it. You're clear, Alina." He pulled out a chair and sat down. "Command is impressed," he said. "They want to give you a commendation, and they want to offer you a spot at the Distinguished Marksmanship Unit. Instructor role. No more field work unless you want it." Alina looked at the papers, then at her hands. They were steady now. But when she closed her eyes, she still saw the scope. She still saw the faces of the men she had almost killed. Men who were just following orders based on a lie. "I'm done, Graves," she said softly. Graves frowned. "You're the best shooter in the Army. You saved 12 SEALs single-handedly." "I killed Americans to save Americans," she said, meeting his gaze. "Necessary, yes, but I can't look through a scope anymore without wondering who signed the order. The trust is gone." She slid the papers back across the table. "I'm processing my discharge. I have enough service time." Graves looked at her for a long time. He understood. He was a warrior, but he knew the cost. Some debts were paid in blood, others in silence. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Somewhere quiet," she said. "Somewhere flat, no mountains." Graves stood up. He extended his hand. "If you ever need anything," he said, "Echo Platoon answers the call, anytime, anywhere." Alina took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, the grip of a brother. "Goodbye, Widowmaker," she said. "Goodbye, Wraith." Alina walked out of the room, down the long hallway, out the double doors of the headquarters building. The sun was rising over Bagram, casting long shadows across the dust. She didn't look back at the base, or the mountains looming in the distance. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and walked toward the transport plane that would take her home. She was done being a weapon. She was done being a ghost. She didn't need medals. She didn't need recognition. She had survived. And sometimes, survival is the only victory that matters. Because in the end, the uniform doesn't define you. Your choices do. And Alina Vance had chosen truth over silence. Dignity over vengeance. Life over legend. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.